Hi, my name is Charla Suggs, and I am the Associate Director for Counseling and Psychological Services at the University of North Carolina at Pembroke. This is a pre-recorded presentation for the 2021 Women's Empowerment Conference, and I would just like to take a moment here at the beginning of my presentation and let you know what an honor it is to be asked to speak with you all. I really do wish that this conference could be held in person or at least live, but there's so many reasons why it can't. And we do continue to cope with all of the ways life has forced to be changed or life has forced to change in the COVID era, and this is no exception to that. But I do want to go on record as saying that I will be really, really excited when we are able to meet and do conferences like this in person again, because they're so powerful and they're so meaningful. And when we have that face-to-face connection live and in person, it is so much different. And I find myself missing that. Maybe you do as well. So the presentation that I have put together for you today is called Motivation, Trash or Treasure, and we'll get to that in just a second. But if you are like many of the people that I talk to, and my experiences are very, very similar as well. Motivation has been a rather difficult, slippery kind of construct to hang on to since, well, for about a year now, I guess. And that's really what was on my heart when Mary Beth Locklear asked me if I would put together a presentation for this conference. So I hope that you find some insight and some content, some material for reflection, because that's really all it's meant to be. I certainly don't have any answers, but I have definitely put a lot of thought into this just because I've needed to. But before I actually turn on the PowerPoint presentation, I do want to tell you a little bit about myself. I have worked at UNCP for well, 8 years now. So I started in 2013, and I am a two-time graduate of UNCP. I finished my undergraduate degree there, and I also finished my graduate degree there. So I'm very proud UNCP alum and very excited and super proud to be working for the Counseling Center, because we do such good work there, and we're a multidisciplinary team made up of specialists, and we're all just so dedicated and devoted to taking care of our students and also being there to support our faculty and staff as well. So it's truly a privilege to be able to do what I do every single day, even though probably the most accurate description of my job is that I get paid to hold pain, and honestly consider it a privilege to do so. But in addition to that, I'm a 22-year veteran law enforcement wife. So I have lived a few things in that context and raised two adult sons. I can't believe I'm even saying that, but I have a 19-year-old and an 18-year-old, one about to go into service with the Coast Guard, and the other hoping for a military scholarship at ECU. He has been accepted, and he'll be leaving for that one way or another, probably in the fall. So um, mother is definitely one of the many roles that I have, in the title that I probably wear the most proudly. But all that aside, I am a mental health professional, so of course the conversation today is going to be framed around mental health, mental wellness, and that sort of thing. I do practice from a wellness orientation, because I do believe that more so than people getting sick and staying sick and pathologizing what's oftentimes a very normal experience when you're talking about stress, I like to refer to terms like stuck. And many times, if we can just figure out a way to get unstuck, then we can find our way again. So without further ado, and without saying too many more ums, I am going to share my screen and get to it. Okay. So my 19-year-old did help me choose this slide format, and in his words, that's something that I would want to watch or pay attention to. So I'm going to hope that you find that you don't mind looking at this as well. Okay, motivation. Trash? Treasure? Is it even real? I don't know. Let's think about it. So, what in the world happened to us as a culture, as women, last March? The implications of a global pandemic began to be felt in the US early in 2020. That's what happened to us. We began to feel the impact of that. And by March of last year, the CDC had recommended no gatherings of more than 50 people. And we know that from there, the recommendations turned into restrictions. They got tighter and tighter, and there was an incredible degree of variance across the individual states across the US is what I'm trying to say. And tensions rose for lots of different reasons, but for everybody experiencing something. I've heard people mention terms like fear was their reaction, disbelief, shock, anxiety, judgment, terror, outrage, confusion, skepticism, blame, exhaustion, elation at times, bewilderment at other times, depression, sadness, anger, stress, renewal, defeat, depletion, resignation, rebellion, cooperation, condemnation, resolve, grief, boredom, loneliness, disconnection, remorse, compassion, panic, and dread. And this is by no means an exhaustive list, and you could probably add your own experiences emotionally to that list to make it even more comprehensive. Many people didn't just experience one or two of these. Many of us experienced varying degrees of pretty much all of these. It's been hard. Of course, we've stayed abreast of the research in our field. So the field of psychology, social work, and counseling, all of the major proponents of these fields and the researchers have been predicting since the onset of the pandemic that we would see a decline in mental health. And we certainly have. We've not only seen that decline in mental health, we have felt it. Podcasts, articles, and news reports across the social science disciplines began discussing the short-term consequences and the long-term impacts of American life disrupted by COVID-19. Many predicted there would be an upsurge in stress disorders, and everyone agreed that we would be dealing with the implications of the pandemic in our mental health for years to come. So in all of this, adjusting to the new normal. Remember when we thought it was temporary? One of my favorite memes, it's funny but not so funny, I mean honestly, is the one that says, hey, remember last March when we all thought the shutdown was going to last 3 weeks? And I remember thinking, oh, this is just temporary, and we were hoping it's temporary. We're still hoping it's temporary. It's just that we don't know how temporary it's going to be. So, as women, as professionals, as citizens trying to cope, stay positive for others, and figure out how to live during a pandemic, it's been a struggle. For women particularly, there have been challenges as unique and numerous as the roles we occupy, and there are many. Though fear was paramount at the onset of the pandemic, many of us could keep a rein on our vacillating emotions after all. We can do anything for a time. That's what we do. We just make it work. But after a while, it gets hard to stay positive, stay productive, stay on track with anything that made sense before life changed as a result of this pandemic. And after a while, many of us begin to hear ourselves say, I've simply lost my motivation. I can't get motivated. I know I've heard myself say it, and I've heard it from so many other people. So, what is motivation, this slippery construct, sort of like self-esteem? Sometimes we wonder if that's even a real thing or if it's something that we've made up, but we've experienced motivation, so surely not. But researchers and motivational speakers disagree on what motivation is. Motivation for most of us is the answer to why we do the things we do. Or not. Much of human behavior is believed to be goal-directed. We are problem solvers by nature. We are meant for forward movement, and we always need a goal. We need to be working for something. We need a target in sight that guides that movement. Human behavior is also thought to be greatly influenced by competing rewards, or what I like to refer to as temptations, and those vary moment to moment. Researchers have attempted to define, through construct validity, motivation, and the antecedents to productivity. So, here are some of the terms that I've come across as I've been investigating this notion of what is motivation and why did we lose it and what does it mean? What does it require to gain it back? So, some of the definitions include intrinsic motivation, which is doing a given thing just simply for the sake of it. That means there's a drive, an internal desire to complete a certain task, and you do it because the thing doing it has value in and of itself. Then there's extrinsic motivation, which is doing a given thing for some sort of external reward. So to gain something or to avoid something negative, to gain something positive, avoid something negative. Then I came across words like self control, which is defined as the capacity to regulate attention, emotion, and behavior in the presence of a temptation or a competing distraction. And then over the past few years, we've heard a lot about grit that refers to that tenacious pursuit of a dominant, superordinate goal despite setbacks. We hear things like, some people have grit, some people don't, but grit is when you put your nose to the grind and you just go and you keep going no matter the rewards, no matter the payoffs, no matter the absence of all of that, you just keep going. Still others have discredited or debunked or invalidated the whole notion of motivation as a construct, offering instead a more complex view of the complexity of human drive. Productivity and the ability to stay in forward motion is predicated on satisfying needs across 6 domains to some: acceptance, curiosity, taking in nourishment, family connection, honor, character development, idealism or a justice orientation, independence, order, physical movement, power and influence, romantic connection, storing up, saving, companionship and safety in social connection, status, peace, vindication. No doubt the notion of 16 basic domains of human need speaks to why we were eventually stopped in our tracks by the power of emotions like terror, outrage, skepticism, blame, disconnection, loneliness, dread, just to name a few from that earlier slide. Mel Robbins is a motivational speaker, and she actually has a blog and a video that you can find on YouTube that is literally titled Motivation is Trash. Some of the things that you'll hear Mel Robbins say is you only feel motivated to do things that are easy because motivation is simply a feeling. It's not this internal drive. She says that she realized I'm never going to feel like doing the things that are tough or difficult or uncertain or scary or new. So I need to stop waiting until I feel like it. And if we give credit to quote unquote motivation for enabling us to accomplish tasks, we're giving power to something outside of ourselves. What we are truly seeking is not motivation, but rather our inherent ability to just do things. That concept is called chutzpah, a supreme self confidence, a shameless boldness that is believed to be possessed by every human being. And it is that ability to just simply do, regardless of how one feels. And I got to say, on that level, I think she's really onto something. So, motivation versus what I like to think of helps us in our day to day put our nose to the grind and go when there are competing distractions is the word discipline. Motivation and discipline aren't exactly the same thing. So, as I started to hear a lot of the people that I work with and the people that matter to me, my loved ones, talk about this loss of drive and this loss of motivation, I really started to become aware of the fact that perhaps we're having the wrong conversation when we refer to motivation. And maybe motivation is that internal energy. We'll talk about that in a little bit that creates this incentive for us to do things. But in absence of that, sometimes it's just simply about discipline. It's about getting up whether you want to or not. So, motivation, intrinsic, extrinsic, self control, grit, discipline. How does it really help us to know any of this? Well, I think it's because it helps us to get real with ourselves. So, I'll use some very real, non research construct language of my own to explore that question even a little further. We know what motivation feels like, and we've experienced the benefits of feeling motivated to do a given thing, clean your house, complete a presentation. It's a valid human emotion, and I don't see any value in discrediting motivation as a construct. We also know that discipline, self discipline, is required to stay the course in any change or pursuit of goals, especially when motivation, the feeling, begins to wane. And it always will, because some days are just tougher than others. Call it grit, call it self control if you like, but I like the D word because none of us actually enjoys discipline. That's something that we have to exercise as a product of our will. And this is where I believe Mel Robbins has it right. We all possess an inherent ability to just do things, to just do, whether we feel like it or not. One thing is for certain, though, discipline does get easier with time and practice because it builds neural circuits in the brain that diminish the need for conscious thought to employ it. Meaning, if you exercise your discipline regularly, you will build habits over time just by doing a given thing that is good for you to the point that it makes so much sense that it eventually morphs into a habit and falls underneath your definition of common sense. Why do I do these things? I mean, why wouldn't I do these things? It's just common sense. At that point, we've built such a strong cognitive pattern in the mind that it doesn't make sense and won't make sense not to do it, whatever it is. So, my real life language and ideas. Motivation. I believe it's emotion driven. How I feel when we're talking about motivation matters a lot. How I feel in the moment right now. The costs benefits analysis of the moment are important when you're talking about motivation, and it's short term, here, now, focused. It dismisses but does not deny the longer term outcome for the sake of instant gratification. On the other hand, I believe discipline is values driven. We're talking about discipline. How I feel in the moment right now is really not relevant. Cost benefits analysis is long term, and that analysis was made in a completely different season. So I believe discipline is exercised when you've made the decision to do it at an earlier time. It embraces long-term benefits through delayed gratification. And like I said before, it requires an exercise of the human will. So if we look at what happened to us last year, in our pre-COVID world that made so much more sense, work for most of us, not everybody, but for most of us, was done primarily away from home. And the lines were clearer then between being at work versus not at work. I know it's even hard for my family whenever I'm working from home because my husband will say things like, "Oh, are you working tomorrow or are you at home?" And my answer is always, "Yes, I'm working tomorrow and I'm not available tomorrow because I'm working. I'm working at home, but I am working," and he always stops and corrects himself and says, "I didn't mean it like that." But even my children, whenever they pass through the space where I'm working, they just start talking to me like I'm not engaged in something else because I'm here. In most cases, in our pre COVID environment, we had to leave home at some point, either for work or for groceries, for church, for our social gatherings. Expectations based on those norms were also really, really clear. We were kind of expected to give our word and be on time, be clean. It's kind of funny because, hygiene takes on a different meaning virtually. We were expected to be prepared, to look professional and appropriate for the task, and to stay organized with our supplies and our tasks, and to remain connected with others and being a good friend, a good daughter, a good in law, a good mother, a good employee, a volunteer, et cetera, et cetera. And I use to et cetera is there on purpose because we do carry so many roles as women. This idea of extrinsic motivation, external motivation filled in the gaps where our intrinsic motivation might have failed pre-COVID. In the COVID era, I said error, that was a Freudian slip, wasn't it? In the COVID era, that got a lot harder. Workplace has shifted now to remote for some of us. In some cases, 100% of work can be done from home. We're on a trip or intermittently between other regular workaday tasks like laundry, cooking, attending to family and friends, driving, even. I won't tell you whether or not I'm guilty of that one. But the lines have definitely blurred between what it means to be at work versus off duty and free. Few, if any, absolute requirements to leave home are in place anymore. In fact, we've been admonished to stay at home. We've been told to work remotely if we can, whenever we can, have groceries and takeout delivered, attend church online or by some means of a drive-through, to connect with family and friends virtually, to celebrate milestones and offer inspiration to one another from a distance with things like parades and other drive-through activities. And it's hard. This offers clear advantages for safety and increased convenience, but at what cost? Because it's not how we were wired to live, it's how we're required to live right now. Expectations are also looser. Time is a little bit more relevant. Little preparation is required before we show up virtually. Cleanliness and professional appearance is also relative, relaxed. I do most of my work in yoga clothes, and you can't really tell that they're yoga clothes if I'm wearing a cardigan from the waist up, but you could definitely tell from waist down. I would never show up to work like that. Organizational challenges are profound. Most of our stuff that we use to work is at work, yet somehow we've managed and or our responsibilities on the days that we're not in the office has shifted to others. We attempt multitasking on an extreme level, and not because we're required to, but because we can, doing our regular paid or volunteer work interspersed through the regular tasks that we would do if we were at home on a day off. Our multiple roles are being played out simultaneously in the same space. Screen exhaustion is profound. I think everyone is zoomed and WebExed to death. That loss of meaningful connection causes a disconnect between how we feel and how we think we're supposed to feel. That's hard. Between how we engage and how we think we are supposed to engage, good citizens versus authentic human beings, where is that line that we are constantly required to and committed to trying to straddle? Confusion is also present, though just outside of our conscious awareness, usually. Even though we're home more than ever, we're exhausted on a level that we don't quite understand. Shelter in place, stay at home, work remotely, be flexible with your employees and your coworkers, but then at the same time, we're also told telework is a privilege. And we know that, but wait, I thought you were telling me to make that a priority and to be flexible and embrace it, but now you're telling me it's a privilege. It's important to stay away and keep everyone safe, but you must meet the needs of your clients and your business and your job. So you're going to have to show up if it's necessary for you to show up, unless it's not necessary for you to show up. We've all seen the meme of the lady that's pointing out all of the contradictions that we've heard over the past year. And it's confusing. It just is. The experience of intrinsic pressure to meet external expectations, even though we know those expectations are relaxed, but not really, creates an inner turmoil best characterized by the word anxiety. So, helping fields predicted the decline of mental health. We're there. On some level, we're all there. We've been doing this temporary thing for a year now, a whole year. Some of us have said we refuse to embrace this way of living as the new normal, but regardless, it's necessary for now. And temporary is relative. So the struggle is real, and the struggle is also normal. What would be unnatural is to not be affected adversely in our mental health by all of this, or in our emotional health, or even in our physical health, because COVID has disrupted everything. A different approach to motivation could be to realize that motivation can be best defined as a personal why. We all need a why. The why is what shapes our understanding enough to support the energy to do. So, if you look up the word motivation, you'll find a definition that sounds something like this: the reasons one has for acting or behaving in a particular way, or the desire or the willingness to do something. It can result from inspiration, determination, or a desire to gain or avoid something. It's an internal experience that creates energy to act. That's how I see motivation. I don't believe it's so much a matter that we have lost our motivation. It's just that sometimes now we have to use or exercise discipline to access that energy to do when it's hard. We've been forced to confront the reasons we ever had to do some things in the first place. That, too, is not an easy place to be. That requires us to look at some places that we've never had to before. And we're often required to seek motivation when we didn't realize it used to be provided for us. And is it really this hard? And this is my pet peeve. Anytime I ask someone a question, they say, well, yes and no. But really, that is kind of the only way to answer this question of motivation. Is it really this hard? Well, I mean, yeah, and no, not really. It's not hard to understand, but it is powerfully difficult to do sometimes. But what I invite you to consider is, what is your personal why for whatever it is that you feel like you've lost the motivation to do? Where are you seeking inspiration? Are you seeking it at all? Or are you just passively waiting for it? And take some time on that before you answer. Motivation is a feeling. Absolutely, it's a feeling. But it's also a state of mind. And often it absolutely is a choice. And that's where that D word, discipline, that none of us likes, can really help us access, once again, motivation to create the energy out of being inspired to do things we don't necessarily want to do because it's congruent with who we are becoming, who we have always uh, intended to be. And I believe that empowered women empower women. I think you believe that too, or you wouldn't be interested enough to attend these presentations. So let's start those hard conversations from within and find the treasures with no desire to remain hidden. Then we can help others do the same. This life is ours, pre-COVID, COVID, and post-COVID. And I invite, not challenge, but invite you to harness the power of your own insight and keep empowering others. These are some references if you want to check any of these out. And I cannot tell you how honored I am to have been able to speak with you today. Truly, though, honored to have been asked to give this presentation again. It's been food for thought for me. Thought maybe sharing a little bit of that meal might be good for you. So take it for what you will. Think about it. And there is no Wonder Woman. We're all Wonder Women. So thanks so much.